Hello everyone, welcome to Scandor channels. Scandor is a channel to connect with the expert in the IT area who can have for sharing the views, experience on what they have done so far in the IT career. And from that, we hope that we can bring more lessons, more knowledge, more information, so you can prepare for your own career and your own development in the futures. And today we are very happy to connect with Karan. Karan is the engineering manager at Gojek, and I would say that I was really lucky to have the chance to work with Karan before, and I'm really impressed, to be honest, really impressed by the way he do the work. He comes with the approach for every single problem that we may have in the past, and especially is a part of he's a passionate interviewer. And today, Karan will bring a lot of interested sharing to you. And I will leave the stage for Karan to give the introduction.
Thank you, Xuan. Hi everyone. My name is Karan Trehan. Currently, I'm working at Gojek as an engineering manager. I manage the Android and iOS teams at Gojek in one of the products that we work on. I had again the wonderful opportunity to work with Xuan in the past. We worked together on setting up a new team from scratch in GoPay in our time together there. So looking forward to the questions that Xuan might have and trying to share the information and experiences that I have had over the past 10 years that I've been associated with information technology and tech in general. Thank you, Xuan, for inviting me here.
Yep. Thank you, Karan. So I think for starting, so you just remind about 10 years. 10 years is a long amount of time, and you've been working in software development, especially with mobile development for quite a while. So the first questions, for sure, I want to start with it, and I want to know like what is the reason why you start with mobile development, especially with Android development, and why you engage with that, and what is the motivation, the love from that. And also I want to hear more from you about the change from mobile development for the past few years, and let's say can be what is the upcoming change for mobile development in next recent years.
Sure. So great question. I started off with Android development through a very simple story. I was in college studying information technology. Why did I pick up information technology? Because someone told me you're good with computers, you should pick it up for your graduation. So just join. In my second year, while I was walking to college, I saw a group of people working, like a group of people surrounding a mobile phone, doing something on it, and they were seeming like having a very good time. They seemed to be having a very good time. So I asked them what exactly were they doing, and they said there's this very cool app that has come out on Android, and we're playing it and we're having a lot of fun. And I joined them, and we spent around 1 hour laughing and having a lot of fun. After that experience, I decided, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to develop, or I want to be in such kind of a tech where people can carry the things I build in their pockets. If you are, let's say, a backend developer, yep. If you're a backend developer, you can't essentially show someone, hey, this is what I built. Although you can tell them that the data that you got here is something I built. But in Android and iOS, it kind of is a very personal connect that you have where you essentially build what people are using and having a lot of fun with. It's solving problems directly. Not trying to say that backend engineering or data science is not that cool, but just that it connected with me at that point of time, and I decided to do it, and then started learning development on my own through YouTube. Became an Android developer first, and now doing Android as well as iOS, as well as a bit of Flutter to solve problems. So yeah, that's how my journey started, and that's how I started off with mobile development. Coming to your next question, which was where do I see mobile development moving towards over the next 5 years?
Yes.
Mobile development is growing so fast. I don't even know where it's going to be in the next 6 months. It's very difficult to kind of identify with mobile. I think it's going to become more prominent in mobile, and as developers, it is something we should be learning more about. Uh, for the users, not a lot to change according to me. From a tech perspective, we would go to kind of similar solutions for similar problems. Um, from a user perspective, I think it's going to become Android and iOS. The differences would kind of become very less.
Mm.
Whatever iOS tries to innovate on, the next year or so, you see Android doing a similar thing. What Android innovates on, you see iOS doing a similar thing in the next year or two. So the differences between the platforms themselves might reduce, and from a technical perspective also, we might come to a reactive paradigm to build apps. Where does Flutter stand in all of that is still not very clear to me, although it shows a lot of promise. I'm not really sure. But if you're a native iOS and Android developer, I would recommend that you start with reactive programming, the way the UI is built there. If you're a Flutter developer, I would ask you to continue doing it because I'm not really sure what's going to happen with Flutter. Yep.
Thank you. So I think there's a lot of instruction, especially I also see that like Android and iOS. Before that, we have a lot of battle between Android developer and iOS developer because how cool we are, what is the difference. But now they come really close together, and there's not much different. I know there are still that make those OS unique, but it's not like that different anymore. And yep. So for the next questions, so I believe that with 10 years of experience working, like you had the chance to work with many different engineers from different countries, and I think it's a very great experience, like the global engineer. And beside with the working experience, you also joining in like Udemy for being the tutor for the Google courses, and you also had the chance to deliver the content and knowledge to people all around the world as well. So I would love to know a bit more about the feeling of being the global, not global citizen now, the global software engineers, and like what is the different like being the global engineers look like.
So first of all, I love the term global engineer. I think this is the first time I'm hearing about it from you, and it makes a lot of sense. I think Southeast Asia is coming up as a engineering hub. A lot of tech tech companies have offices in, let's say, India, Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, Jakarta. So I think, and many other countries that I might not be aware of. I think it becomes much more important for us to not only work with people from our own countries, but have more experience with people from other countries itself. Uh, I think over time, what has happened is with COVID coming into the picture and us working remotely from home, all of us are essentially decentralized anyways. So it's going to be easier for us to, at a later stage, say that instead of all of us sitting in India, even if one of our team members is in Jakarta or is in, let's say, Vietnam, it is going to be the same productivity that we would see. For me, one of the most essential skills that is required to become a global engineer of sorts is communication. The better you are at communicating, the better would you be able to bring value to your team. Now, that communication is not limited to the language that you use. Your company might decide that the official language for communication is English, for example. Uh, what matters more is the amount of efforts you take to communicate well. Do you write better documentations? Do you write better messages to one another? Do you articulate problems better? Are you able to come together to build a solution on together? So I think communication is the most important thing to become a global engineer. To become an engineer, it's very clear what all you require. You need to be good at problem solving. You need to be good at, let's say, system designing. You need to be very good at, let's say, edge cases, etc., etc. Coding by default. To become a global engineer is where the communication comes into the picture, and being good communicator is what is going to make you a good global engineer. Yeah.
So I would like to continue on that part of global engineering because some engineers, especially I used to hear some people sharing with me that like they had the fears when like the opportunity becomes global because before that, let's say if the opportunity come to Vietnam, so it's only for Vietnamese, but now like it's for everyone. So it's that more competitors, more competitive. So it's mean that more pressures, but like it's a cons. But I would love to know more from you. Is what is the pros? What is the positive thing that we need to look at, like the global opportunities like that?
So I would preface this with a bit of history here. I have worked with Vietnamese engineers. I have worked with Indonesian engineers. I have worked with engineers from Singapore, from various countries of origin, and I have also worked extensively with engineers from India. The advantage of having a global team with global engineers is the perspectives they bring to the table are extremely different. Uh, let's say someone from India might bring in perspectives which are very different from someone who would be actually from Indonesia or from Vietnam. Uh, I understand that it kind of leads to some problems or some challenges that okay, there's a lot more people there, so it's going to be challenging to get opportunities and stuff. But companies like Gojek and other companies that I've seen in the past, actually want people from a diverse background so that they bring diverse solutions to diverse problems.
Different
For example,
right?
Yep, yeah, yeah. So, for example, someone from Vietnam, I worked with someone from Vietnam who was able to solve a particular bug in 30 minutes, whereas I myself was finding it very difficult to identify it. So it doesn't really matter where you come from. It essentially is the skill set that you bring, the diversity that you bring to the team. I think that is something that all of us benefit from. Till the time you're able to communicate well.
Sorry, I cannot hear you anymore, Karen. No, I can hear you now. I just lost
Okay.
around 10 seconds.
Okay, sorry.
Is okay?
So yeah, I think my internet was answered. Cool. So where do you want me to start from?
I think I just lost you about 10 seconds when you're talking about the skill sets for.
Yeah. So I think like it's obvious or to have kind of inhibitions that it might be challenging to become a global engineer. I understand that, but I think if you believe in your talent and if you're able to communicate that well, I think it's just full. There are a lot of opportunities that we can tap on, and you just need maybe a mentor to help you out, to guide you on what to do and what to ignore, and I think it will be smooth sailing for you.
So coming back to the point with the skill set, let's start with like how you are going to find the right people, like wherever they are, like to join the teams through the interview sessions. I know last time we had chance to join in some same interview sessions, and one thing that I really love from like observing you, like doing the interview sessions, is you have the engagement with the candidate for working on like the challenge that even you raised it. So I would love to know more from you. Is what is the perspective? What is the skill? What is the things that you want to know? What you want to get it from the candidate the most from the interview sessions, and how you decide your like question flow so that you can achieve that.
Sure. So I think this is something that we try to work on to improve overall at Gojek itself. I was lucky enough to be a part of the panel that decided or came up with the standardized interview process at Gojek. For us, the most important guiding principle in an interview is it's not a one-way communication. It's always two ways. So the first question that I might ask a candidate as soon as they join the interview is, what is something that you worked on in the past 6 months that you are the most proud about? Now, what that does is it's a very open-ended question about what you have done and you are proud of. If you have done it, you would of course know about it in all the details. So I would try to ask you questions about it in detail to understand how well did you decide an approach A over approach B. So that tells me your problem solving skills. I would also ask you, okay, if you went with approach A, why or how did you use it? So I essentially come to know your in-depth knowledge about a particular system or a particular framework or a particular technology. It's always driven by the candidate themselves. They are knowledge based, they are comfort, and being from mobile, right? There are various ways of doing one thing. Let's talk about threading. Threading on Android can be done in 6 different ways. Now, what I know of, maybe someone else might not know of. What I need to evaluate during an interview is not how well do they know X. I need to evaluate how well do they know the system that they have used. That puts some amount of pressure on me as an interviewer, because I need to be good at all the 6 possible ways of doing it. But as an engineering manager or as a senior engineer, you are supposed to know all the 6 so that you can define which one to use on for what use case. So I think interviews by general for a global engineer or an engineer are supposed to be open-ended questions. After those questions, you go into as much detail as possible about one thing only to understand how well a candidate has gone into details of the things that they work on. So that's what I try to do. Keep it open-ended as well as try to go into depth rather than trying to cover, let's say, all the various things that you can do in Android. Let's cover one thing, but cover it in all details.
Okay. So let's say if you need to name out 3 of the most important competencies for the engineer who can join into your mobile teams, so what are they?
So top 3 is difficult. The first one I would say is skill set. The most important is how well do you know the things that you have used. Let's say someone tells me that I work with Swift UI. Now I need to know how well or in how much depth have you played around with Swift UI. As an engineer, what you're supposed to do is also look at how Swift UI internally works. That's like, for me, the best type of an engineer would not just use frameworks, they would try to understand how the framework internally works. For a recycler view, for example, what are the various elements in a recycler view and how do they work together? Very basic question. Most of us have not yet looked at the internal implementation of recycler view. But a good engineer would actually go in and see, okay, how does this work? And if I need to make changes to it, how will I do it? So the first thing for me, most important, is skill set. The second thing, most important to me as a person, is your general attitude. How well do you take feedback during an interview? How well are you able to explain things? Are you saying that RxJava versus coroutines, I will use RxJava because coroutines is very bad? And that's not something that I personally like to hear. Everything has pros and everything has cons. You can't just say that one thing is the best and one thing is the worst. There are use cases at which you have to like pick something up. Now that also comes back to skill set, like how well do you know something, but then how well do you communicate it and how well do you
convince the interviewer?
Yeah. So how well do you take feedback? How well do you explain things to me? I think that's the most important. It's the second thing that I look at. The third thing that I would actually look at is how open are you to learning? Let's say, as I said, right, mobile is so fast developing. Not saying backend is not. As I have most amount of experience in mobile, I would talk about mobile only. Mobile landscape changes every 6 months. So how open are you to learning? that today you are building things in XML, tomorrow you have to start working with Compose. Do you feel the urge to learn? Do you feel the urge to improve? If that is something that is lacking in you, I would rate you much lower. I would not just that I understand that later parts in your career it becomes difficult to just like constantly keep learning. But I would recommend that if you want to be a global engineer or a good engineer, I would recommend that you keep learning. So yeah, these are the top three things that one I would like to look
So I would like to repeat just to make sure that I remember and understand it correctly. So it's a skill set, like
at.
how that you understand the skill that you list out that you mentioned that you used to work in the past. The second thing is like for taking the feedback. So how well you communicate, so
Yep.
you can convince the other ones with the ideas that you tend to present, right?
Yep.
And the third one is the like I can say that the potential or how quick you are for learning new things or the
Yep.
enthusiasms for learning new
Yep.
things from the candidate. So I'm more interested in the third point. So how can we identify the enthusiasms from the candidate? Because I do see there's a lot of like videos and a lot of articles on the internet sharing with the candidate about the tip for answering the questions from the interviewer.
Yep.
Honestly, I'm not feeling really good with those one for sharing the tips,
Yep.
but some applied it in the interviews. So how we interviewers can like avoid these situations with the questions?
Sure, sure. So in learning agility on Android and iOS, because we keep improving so fast, or the landscape keeps changing so fast, is very easy. For an Android engineer, I would ask them, "Have you looked at Compose?" If their answer is yes, I would be okay. So they do look at new things that come up. I would ask them questions like, "Okay, have you looked at coroutines? Have you looked at Flow? Have you used Flow? Um, have you been able to convince your team to use Flow in your application? If not, have you used it just to play around with it to understand it?" Even if you look at documentation and tell me, yes, I looked at documentation, but my team told me that they are not yet ready to implement it, I would give you like 10 out of 10, because you at least show the learning agility, like the want or the need to learn. You were
Mm.
not able to learn, that's fine. You didn't get time because of organizational constraints, personal constraints, etc. That's fine. You at least showed the want to learn. On iOS, I would limit the question to, let's say, Swift UI. Yeah. So whatever new comes out, if you have just read about it, I would say I am more than happy to rate you high, because you showed the want to learn about it.
Okay, so it's quite clear about the one way we interviewer want to see from the candidates. So let's
Yep.
talk about another way. So what is the common issues that you normally see from the candidate and you want to share with the audience that who watching the videos so that at least they can avoid? I mean, it's not about the tips to avoid exactly what we are sharing. I didn't mean to share that, but what
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
the common issues that we don't want the upcoming candidate to repeat because it can cause or harm their career growth?
Correct. I think one of the biggest red flags for me as a personal interviewer, and you have been a part of few interviews that we've taken, one of the biggest red flags for us has been dishonesty.
Yep.
If something has been asked from you, if you don't know, say I don't know.
Yep.
Or if you're guessing, say I'm going to try to guess. You can't just say, "Oh, this works like this,"
Mhm.
because you might not know that the interviewing panel knows about it in more detail than you. And if you try to pass it off as a fact, it might actually hurt you. So I would recommend to be very honest during interviews and openly talk about things you don't know. If you get rejected, uh, at least you would get feedback from the recruitment panel saying, okay, these are the things that you need to learn. If you just be dishonest and try to pass off things as facts which are not true, they might not even give you valuable feedback. So the first and most important thing for me is being honest. The second thing is to try to be a bit more confident. I see a lot of engineers, specifically from Vietnam and Indonesia, who while interviewing, the first thing they apologize about is their language skills. They say, oh, I'm not good at English, I'm very slow, I'm sorry for that. I think sometimes that's good because you're being honest, but sometimes that can also backfire because you are inhibiting yourself by saying that my communication skill is not strong. And then they start talking, and then there's no problem in their English at all. So I think being more confident about your skills is something that I would recommend. The third and the final thing that I would recommend is to read up on the things that you're going to talk about. If you're going to talk about, let's say, RX Java for Android, if you're going to talk about routines for Android or Kotlin, if you're going to talk about, let's say, Viper on iOS, make sure you know what you're going to talk about. Because we might want to go into a lot of detail about what you just said. Because you said it, we think you know all about it. And if at that point of time you don't know something, it's going to come off as, okay, he or she just has surface level information and not in-depth information. So I think, yeah, reading up on things that you've used and going into details of them, implementations of them, is what I would recommend you to do. Don't look at the entire landscape saying, I'm going to learn everything. A jack of all trades is something that people want on their team, but a master of something is more important to a company at a later stage. So I would say become a master at one thing and one thing only, and then try to bring your entire interview focus on that thing only. If you're an expert in Dagger, let's talk only about Dagger in your interview. Try to talk only about Dagger. Example. Yeah, so that's some things that I would ask people to work on before they start their interviews.
Yep. So what you mentioned for the third point, does it something similar to the T model? It's a very quite common from the engineering managers who should recommend for the members to use that for improving their career, right?
Yep. So I would not recommend you to essentially become a jack of all trades. As I just said, there are places where you require jacks, where you require someone to have surface level knowledge about everything. But then that jack should also have a mastery of one thing at least. Being a master of 2 to 3 things, well and good. But if you want to just become better, you have to pick up one thing and learn it in all its depth. So there are people in our organization who are RX Java Mavericks, who are Viper Mavericks, who are coroutines Mavericks. So what we do is whenever we have an issue with coroutines, they are the first people we reach out to. The value that those people bring to the organization is 100x, because they're saving 100 engineers time by becoming good at something and solving issues very quickly. So that is one thing that I would recommend. As you said, the T model is what you call it, maybe. Yeah, I would highly recommend that for people to follow.
I may interpret it into somehow like the branding for each engineers. So whenever when people talking about any like specific things, they may remember you at the very like go-to persons that they should ask, right?
Yes.
So be that one in the interviews and also be in the career, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
So the next question for me is like more on personal things. So I know that it's 10 years working on mobile development, and beside with mobile development, like is there any different part of software development that you are quite curious right now, or you are doing the research on that? So what is it and why you are curious on this part?
So great question. I think being curious is one of the skill sets that's required to become a good engineer, and I'm trying to build on that. And no, I'm not at all good. I'm just an engineer trying to become good by becoming more curious about things. Um, the current thing that I'm trying to get into is Go. Uh, Go has a lot of advantages for building backend systems. So I think, and our backend team is also building systems in Go. So Go is something that I'm trying to learn more of. By learning, I mean like hijacking a few pairing sessions by the backend team and just sitting on the call on mute and seeing what they're doing and trying to make notes out of it so that at a later stage maybe I'm also able to add value to that conversation. So yeah, Go is something that I'm trying to learn more and more about. In parallel to that, building backend systems in Kotlin, because Kotlin is something I already know, and I enjoy writing. I thought, why not just try to build a backend system in Kotlin and see how advanced or how stable that is. So parallelly trying to do one thing which I already know and trying to build on top of that, which is Kotlin for backend, and then getting into completely uncharted waters with Go. Yeah, going down the curiosity rabbit hole.
Oh, you remind me about the pair coding sessions. I miss it so much from Gojek, and I think is pair coding session is the things I learned a lot from
Yep.
like peers and like college in Gojek.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's really interesting.
I think one of the major advantages that we've seen with pairing is that we had a new joinee join our team 2 weeks ago. Their first PR was already merged within 2 weeks of joining the organization. Now, with the size of Gojek, with the size of the code base that we have, it's absolutely impossible that you'll be able to understand the code base within 6 weeks of joining. It's very huge. But with pairing, if someone's your buddy, if they're pairing with you, you're able to limit your context down to a few files, work with them, and solve those problems. So I think we've seen a lot of advantages with pairing, which we would want to continue and would want the entire industry to move towards.
It's fun as well. I still remember the part of the issues that me, Cities, and you found out last time through the pair coding session. It's amazing.
Yeah. Sometimes you require a pair, and then sometimes you require a crowd to come together and pair together. So I think rather than pair programming, we were crowd programming. All of us together on one call, 6 engineers trying to figure out bugs. Yeah, that was interesting too.
It's more like similar to what we have done in when we are in university, right? And it's quite fun. Yep. So I think for the very last session before we wrap up our recording session today is let's say if you need to give the advice three points to the audience today who may like share the interest going to the mobile world, like they may like watching our like sessions on their mobile phone via YouTube applications, and they may curious on how amazing they are to make that YouTube application, and they want to discover something. So what is those three advice from you?
If you're beginning mobile application development, my advice to you right now would be pick up a problem and build an app on that. Open up Google Play, download an application. If you like it, try to build it on your own. What that would do is limit the amount of research that you have to do only for that use case. And because it's something that you are building, it will motivate you even when it fails. So if there are crashes, you would actually go ahead and solve them. So pick up a problem or pick up an app that you like, build a clone of it or build an app for that problem. It could be a small problem that your friends have. It could be a small problem your mother or father have. A very small app. Or as complex as you want it to be. Build it, clone it, and focus only on building that app. That's the first thing I would recommend. From a technical perspective, you can go ahead with Flutter if you want to do for iOS and Android both. You can do it in Kotlin. You can write it in Swift. That's completely up to you based on the resources you have and based on the platform that excites you the most. That's completely your decision. That's two. Pick up the platform that excites you the most and build for it. Flutter is always going to be there, at least for the next 2 to 3 years that I see. And there are more and more opportunities coming for Flutter engineers. Android and iOS native are always going to be there. I see opportunities for them also always open. So wait for what you feel like and try to solve that problem. And finally is try to be better communicators and better kind individuals. I think kindness is what is going to help you crack interviews, is going to make you a very valuable player in your team. It's a soft skill to have, being empathetic and being kind. I think these three skills, if you as a early engineer develop on, I think your entry into the mobile world is going to be very simple. Uh, Building on top of the first one, where I said build an app for it and push it out onto GitHub or on GitLab, open source it, so that you have some portfolio to show to your future employers, as well as it helps you become better by allowing people to comment on your code. Yeah, so these are a few things that I did and worked for me, which I would recommend you folks to also.
That's amazing. And also, I would love to add one more thing is like try to connect with the like the mentors, like the experienced one who can like be a part with you during that long way of learning. So that would be great. And for that part, I promise you that like I will come to disturb you more with that topic about mentoring for engineers in the futures, and
Sure.
that will be more like interesting discussions, and I will keep it for later because now it's quite long for the video session, so I think it's better for end it from here. And thanks again, but Karan, for joining with me for the session today. And I think it's a great sharing, and you remind me about, a lot about the times that we worked together in GoPay before. It's a great time for me.
Thank you,
And
Pat. Thank
yep.
you, Pat, for having me. It was great talking to you and trying to articulate my thoughts. In the everyday world that we spend coding, we usually don't think of the big picture or talk about how to improve things at a system level. So thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity to actually question my own thoughts and try to articulate them, which also helps me to think of things that I haven't thought of and try to improve myself. So thanks a lot, Pat.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you so much for watching the videos. And if you like the audience, if you want to know more like about Karen, about the upcoming sessions, or more about the content or the upcoming plan from Scandor, so please help us by supporting the speaker by click on like and subscribe. And we would love to hear more from you under the comments from this video. So thank you so much. Nếu các bạn thấy video này hữu ích thì hãy vui lòng bấm like và subscribe ở dưới để ủng hộ cho Scandor. Và các bạn cũng có thể bấm follow để biết được các cái thông tin về những video tiếp theo cũng như các thông tin về khách mời tiếp theo của Scandor. Cảm ơn tất cả các bạn.